Hi everybody, welcome to Talking Automotive with Mark and John. My name is Ky Sinclair and my co-host Mark Palavestra.
Hi John, and in keeping with our international theme, we now travel from South Africa to Estonia. And we've got some really powerful digital guys to give us some really good insights into digital in the automotive space.
Yeah, Mark, these are really two great guys. They really live and breathe digital. They've spent their whole life in the automotive digital space, and I think some really great things will come out of the discussion today. So let's jump into the discussion. Siim, Janek, it's great to have you on the show this morning. Janek, you've been in the digital space for a long time. 4 years with Automaster. You spent 9 years with CDK and a further 3 years with Modera. You live, sleep and dream the whole digital space. Siim, you're an entrepreneur. You've been in this digital space for a long time. And correct me if I pronounce some of the names incorrectly, but you've been a co-founder of Ky, intelligent building hardware and software company. And you were there for nearly 8 years. You've been a partner with Fugura, where you've been there for nearly 12 years, and you're currently with them at the moment. So it's a card and identity software. And now you're also the co-founder of Modera, which you've been running for nearly 19 years, a customer experience digital company for the automotive industry. So a long time in the market. I think you know the digital background 100%. And so it's really great to have you on board and that. We're really looking forward to talking to you this morning.
Thank you. Good for having us.
Yeah, thank you, John. And good morning from sunny Estonia.
Now, gentlemen, I'm keen to ask some questions for our listeners just to get them familiar with the background of Estonia, because a lot of people say, why are we interviewing some automotive digital guys from Estonia? So if you could help us out, please, just with some background on where is Estonia and why is Estonia at the forefront of digital? And also, is there any government support in helping businesses in the digital space in Estonia?
Okay. The first question, where we are located, we are the northmost Baltic state. We are 50 miles from Finland across the sea, and we are bordering with the Russian Federation. So this shortly puts us onto the map. Now to the digital forefront question. I think there are several aspects to it. First of all, when we got our freedom from, we broke from Soviet Union in the beginning of 90s, we didn't have any IT legacy. And also it happened that we got kind of progressive and intelligent governance for many years. And that was backed by a lot of kind of sealed ambition because, before Soviet Union, we were kind of part of the Western world, and we still knew all the stories and, what should be done and how the world should work. And now we, together with this freedom, came kind of euphoria. There was a lot of motivation to do things there. Also, there was as I told you, there was no legacy. And there was many talented people with engineering degrees. So basically, all the cards were kind of right. So for example, for my example, I was studying business in Estonian business school. But there were 4 friends of us in the course. On the side, we were all learning programming, doing digital projects and startups on the side because we saw the future in that. So that's basically a combination of things. And then again, out of 4 of us, 3 were among the first employees of Skype. Then Skype happened basically. Then the global kind of scaling, technology scaling know-how came into the play. Then Estonia is a very tiny country, so it's only 1 million people, so everybody knows each other. So the knowledge from the digital space was available on the government level as well. So on the government level, there were many important choices made. One of them was like a blockchain type of digital identification foundation, which was then backed with ID cards and digital signatures. And then it formed like a thing called X-Road, which then combines the public and private sector together. And now actually Estonia has been successfully exporting that to many countries and is still doing that. And now to the support to the digital space, my personal belief is that how would I say, the commercial space has influenced the government more, because there have been people going back and forth doing some stints in the government level on the digitalization, and then going back to doing things more quickly, and so moving from startups to government. So there has been quite a lot of things happening there. So for all the things that I talked to you about have some sort of reference also with the commercial side of things. And also there is e-government, which is on the top level of the world, but also e-citizenship was launched. So actually to make the country bigger than it is with digital citizens. And I think that also applies to how government is helping. So, and why we have so much digital success is that we are so small country that any startup or new company that started has to have global market in mind. Otherwise, it's not possible to have any profitability. And on another level, that Estonia is so small that also we are able to use our government contacts abroad to leverage, to open the doors to the big businesses around the world. So I hope that sums it up a bit for you.
No, that's a great summary, great overview there. Now, another question, given that you've got such strengths in digital, a question I'm keen to ask is, with your experience in digital, how do you find the automotive industry has embraced digital, and what have been the challenges, and what do you see as the opportunities with digital in automotive?
Actually, I think that it's also good to have this government reference to the automotive world, because I feel that even though I haven't worked with government, I know how it works and how it is. I think the reference is there, so that the organizations are big and the processes are difficult and long. Also, the product itself is difficult. So basically, coming back to the digital side of things, so we started in the beginning of 2000s by kind of solving master data management and getting the right data out there for official and dealer websites. So that's basically where also the digitalization of the automotive industry started on a larger scale. But then again, that was a sort of not that difficult problem to solve. The bigger problem is related to the sales, because the products are difficult, the processes involved. Even in the sales, very many different pre-sales activities, trade-ins, financing, insurance, and also there are very many legacy systems, like tens or hundreds of them, that don't talk to each other. So the challenge is like on a government level, Estonia didn't have it. So there was no legacy. It was easy to digitalize all the processes. So right now in Estonia, only thing I can't do digitally is get married or divorced. Everything else, everything I can do digitally. But now when applying that to the Western worlds who had already legacy, it's a really difficult task to pull through. Now, comparing to the other industries, I think since the simpler the product is, the easier the digitalization was. So most of the other industries have been digitalized. And then again, I think one of the problems of automotive industry is that in the 70s, 80s, and even in the 90s, there was actually quite a lot of digital progress. And there are quite many good production DMS systems, but they are not open to the digital world. So they are in the silos. And I would say that also the problem is that at least on the higher level, on the OEM level, also on country sales office level, there is also a problem that very often marketing and sales are not working as one team. So it's very difficult to kind of put initiatives that involve, for example, sales, marketing, and production into a product, into a kind of reasonable project, and then also pull it through kind of globally as a rollout, because then you have also those, if you take like higher government, then you have the local government, and you have to kind of force that into the local government, which is kind of very difficult task to do. I hope that summed it up for you.
You say that you've seen you see that trend globally, where there seems to be that push or that disconnect between sales and marketing, and that alignment of that funnel, and especially the digital journey through that funnel.
Yes, yeah, that's one of the issues that we have been facing, and also we see that another thing is that even on the global level, like the OEM headquarter level, there is a plan, but then there are those issues like do you have actually the authority to or enough power to kind of pull it through? I mean, first of all, in the national sales offices level, and then also we have the problem that there is a lot of changes in the personnel, and also it very often happens that you have a project started, but then the people change, and it kind of the initiative stops somewhere. But at the moment, I think since the COVID-19 outbreak has happened, so now something needs to happen now, and we see a lot of happening now after that, because at least those OEMs who have been lagging behind in the digitalization, they need to make some bold moves now to make it happen.
If you don't make a bold move, especially with this COVID break, you'll be left behind. Is that a fair summary?
Yes, that's basically summary, because if you don't know in real time what's happening till the customer level in the pre-sales and sales, and if you don't have the contactless online sales and retail systems available, we hope that this doesn't happen. But if there are new outbreaks, it's very difficult to operate. And also, I think the mindset of the customers have changed, and the overall trend has come like 2-3 years closer to us in terms of digitalization.
A question for me, Siim. In terms of customer groups in that, are you seeing different trends between different customer groups? So between older people or younger people, are different groups embracing it better, or between government or fleet owners and that? Where do you see the trends, and what type of trends do you see happening in the market?
The trend is, for example, if you take our experience with this crisis, our cloud technology that our customers are using. So we have roughly 30 brands on national levels and different regional levels using our software. Only 5% were actually using the online sales functionalities that we had embedded to the platform. Now, when we come out of the crisis, during the crisis, 90% of them started to use. So at the moment, it's 95. So it's a huge, explosive increase. On another thing is that I think that it's a question of usability. So it's not the problem. The younger people have always used digital solution, however they can. But the older people need to have the user experience that's easy enough for them to use. For example, my grandmother, who is like 89, is using internet and all Estonian e-government systems to it's not the problem. Also like online banking and so on. So it's just a question of usability. I don't think that those gaps between the user groups can be closed by providing easy to use connected tools that are actually available, but not that widely used today.
And a question just on those customers. Younger customers embrace it, so they're embedded in digital. But another question is, and the government's very attuned to what you see in Estonia, but in the other markets that you work with, are the government still embracing of it? And also, where do the fleet and corporate customers fit in with that, with the digitization from an automotive perspective?
I just want to kind of give my few cents about how I've seen the digital space evolving. So basically, I was thinking in the morning. So I think I had my first real customer project around 2005. So when I joined the Automaster, so we were delivering dealer management software. So by 2005, I think the dealer management systems had been around for probably 2 decades. And when I joined, I actually managed to see the shift from DOS-based application to a window-based. So it was a big change back then. And what I saw back then was that the main focus was still on the after-sales part. So the dealer management software was to cover the parts, the workshop, the parts stock and stuff like that. And back then, I think most of the systems were client-server based. So basically, you had an in-house server running the system. And I think I saw the introduction of CRM part around 2007 and 2008. So then actually the CRM functionality was added to DMS. And I remember as well that the sales funnel kind of functionality was introduced. Basically, you had your leads, you had your test drives, you had your offers, you had your deliveries. But I think the dealer management systems as well follow the global trends. But what I saw that even if the functionality was available, the dealers didn't take use of that. So they were really slow to adopt the new way of selling. And I think in 2008, I think I saw that the system started to produce the quotes. So before that, you used Microsoft Word, you used Excel, you had your own folder in your computer where you saved all the quotes. But then there was a switch to manage those tasks via the systems. And but still, the software was pretty I would say operational for the staff use. So it lacked any connectivity to a customer. And I think around 2010, I saw the change. Actually, as I remember, the first services what the dealers provided online was like simple service booking or simple browsing of the parts catalog. So that's what I saw were the first things. CRM, I think, was around quite many years, but the usage was pretty low. And I think what made a change was that actually the OEMs started to push their dealers to embrace the new technology and new processes. So before, it was really depending on your dealership, your management, whether you were doing the sales in a specific manner, were you following up the leads, were you following up the offers. So it was like based on the company internal processes. A lot of companies did not have those processes. Some of the salesmen did that, some did not. And as we knew back then, and probably it applies to today, is that salesman is a specific individual and he's rotating, and he rather likes to keep his contacts close to him. And when he moves, he takes his contacts with him. And therefore, I think for the company owners, it has been very important task to push his team to use the tools. So once the salesman is leaving, he still has the customer and the history with the customer. And I think, if I remember right, around 2012, one of the largest OEMs had a big initiative. They called this good, better, best, and they actually set the rules, how the leads are handled, how quickly you need to pick up the lead, what do you need to do with the lead, how often you need to follow the lead up. And then as well, this gave a big push for software companies like ourselves to be able to sell and provide full functionality for them. So as saying, how I saw that was that first came the software, then came the process, and then came the OEM push to start using the stuff. Now, of course, the shift to digital has moved on faster, because I think this period where you have a salesman sitting in the showroom and waiting for the client is kind of over. So your buyers are using different sources. They are online, they are in social media. So to get them, you need to be there as well.
Yeah, Janek, that leads on to the next question. In terms of the whole digital space, how is that impacting customer behavior? You're starting to see more research. Is it improving customer satisfaction? What's your feeling around that area?
Well, as Siim already mentioned, the youngsters, they have grown up with internet, so they do everything online. But as I see it, it's again depending on the region, on the culture. People tend to make their own research first. So the more data available, the more educated they will be. So they surf around, they look at the videos, they visit the national websites, they end up on the dealer website. And by the time they are ready to buy, they are very well educated. They already know all the specifics. So they just reach out to the dealership to just get a confirmation what they found out. Again, what I've noticed, I've been working in 15 different countries across Europe. What I see is that in some regions, like the Baltics, like Estonia, people want to go on the radar. So they want to find out everything. And once they're ready, they will contact the dealership. And this as well shows that they are reluctant to chat live with the dealer because they want to go unnoticed. But the other example, if you go to Western Europe, you go Italy, the culture is different. So those people there rather talk to the dealership, ask all the questions, and basically they make dealership do the hard lifting and explain everything. So that's my opinion on that.
Now, a question from me is, so are the customers they're doing more research, and I'm just keen to get your advice, given what you're seeing across the various European markets. How should dealers be approaching the digital showroom and also the online media and social media in general?
My thinking is that the message in all channels should be the same. And the purchasing experience should be pretty much the same. What we've seen over the years is that if you look at the OEM or national websites, they are all fancy. They have all the products listed there, easy to navigate. But then as a buyer or potential buyer, you then choose one of the dealers and you end up on their website. And if the experience is not the same anymore, the price lists are not there, or they're not readable, or you don't see their available stock, I think that's very bad. So I think the experience should be as good the whole way. And then, if you're lucky enough that the customer comes to your dealership, and then usually the experience in the dealership is way different. I mean, you still have a traditional salesman sitting in a corner. You still have brochures. So you're going back many years. So I think nowadays buyer would expect more digital solutions in the dealership as well, like having a configurator on a tablet, or being able to choose from different colors. So, I mean, my experience with one of the exclusive brands has been that I wanted to buy a car. They had one in the showroom, but I didn't like the color. So instead, while they didn't have any digital configurator there, we went to the parking lot. They showed me similar color car, but it was another another model. And that's the experience. So I just had to buy a car which I didn't even see on the screen. So I think that's very important, that the good experience, what starts with the OEM side, has to continue all the way to the dealership.
So Janek, is there any particular ways that dealers can use to engage customers? Because you know they're doing a lot of research online. So are there any particular things that dealers should be doing on social media or on their websites to try and attract and engage those customers and hold them?
I think the least they can do is to use live chat. As Siim already mentioned, we have seen quite a big change in the usage of chat, but that was due to the health crisis we're having. But when I've been discussing with dealers why they don't use the chat as an additional channel, there are multiple answers I'm getting back. One of them being that, well, no one will chat with me anyway, or then I don't have the time to be there to answer the questions. So those have been like two main reasons not using the chat. But I think it's a bit wrong, because I think the buyer now expects dealer to be available, not only in the showroom via the phone, but as well on their own website. So I think the chat would be the first simple step to do to become more digital.
Yeah, and also what we have seen is that actually now, since the usage of online sales and chat has exploded, we are also sorting the solution. As you mentioned, there are different social media platforms out there. So actually, to make it simple for the salesman to chat in any channel with the same solution, because it's people are using WhatsApp, they're using Messenger, they're using Line. Younger people are very used to the solutions that they already have. So we are also closing the gaps there, so that actually the salesman could work from one solution in all the channels. That will help a lot.
And yet again, what I see is that the OEMs are stepping in and pushing their dealers to start using different digital tools, including online chat. So at least I think the OEMs in a bigger scale are thinking into the right direction. But it's unfortunate that most of the dealers won't make that move themselves.
Janek, in terms of live chat, do you think it's worthwhile for dealers to be having sales consultants operating into the evenings? Or should they just be live chat during working hours? What's your feeling on that?
Well, I would say that as a consumer, I would expect my question answered quite quickly. But at the same time, I understand the limitations of the working day. So I personally wouldn't expect them to answer me after hours. But we have actually some of the clients who are manning the chat from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. So if the dealership is able to provide that, it's a good thing. But do we really expect them to answer at that time? Probably we would be happy to get the reply in the morning as well.
And over here as well, that if the reply comes to your familiar channel, then it's more likely to work. If you have to go back to the website, then it wouldn't work.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Sim. It's trying to link all those links together, make sure it's coming back to the right point. So,
question for me is, given you've got live chat and you've got obviously the e-commerce solution, but are you seeing a trend increasing around video presentations? Is there an expectation from customers, and is there an equal response from good dealers or good dealer practice to do video presentations?
There's definitely, I don't know if there's a demand for the video presentation, but definitely a lot of dealer groups are thinking or already doing that. So as a consumer, I would say it's a good thing to have. Is it must have right now? Not that sure. Because as I was saying before, depending on the region and culture, you do your own research. So you visit YouTube, you already know everything about this car. So you just eventually need a confirmation to your facts from the dealer. So in that point, well, video would be optional. But again, in some other regions, it could be a very good thing. What we have seen around our countries is that some of the dealers are trying that, but we haven't really got the feedback, what the customers are thinking about this. So I'm kind of, time will tell.
It's too early to say if it will work or not, but we will give it a try.
Okay. And electric cars, with technology moving to electrification, are you seeing the expectation around digital from customers in the electric space, given Europe's been a lot more advanced with electric cars than what Australia has been? Are you seeing that's a critical piece for success in selling electric cars?
I think that since those new electric cars, I happen to just have one Renault Zoe that just came out. So the car itself is so digital. So of course, having the digital experience around the purchasing process would help a lot, because otherwise it would be a little bit strange if there are huge gaps. Like the purchasing process is very offline, and then you get into this very nice and futuristic connected car.
And another question I'm just going to ask around is the advantages and disadvantage in the digital sales process as far as the measurability and the transparency in how the leads are managed. And also, what sort of structured processes do you see work?
Mm. So basically, if you don't have fully digitalized pre-sales software in place on your retail network, where you can monitor and collect the data in real time, then you are not able to build any of the back-end systems and reporting systems and do vehicle optimization and gamification and so on. So that's the first thing to sort. So as I mentioned before, you need to, we are using some machine learning and to kind of connect the marketing production data and sort all that in the front end tool. But only then you kind of open the door to improvement and a lot of cost saving on another level, like on the regional sales organization and on the OEM level.
Yep, I think first of all, you can have a superb system, but if it's not used, it's worth nothing. So we had a good case with one of our largest clients, Kia, who implemented the lead management system to their dealer network. And of course, the idea was the visibility, the transparency, and actually it was in benefit for all the parties. But the dealers, or some of them, were reluctant to use the system. They didn't want the importer to see and know everything. So they just used the parts in the system which they are beneficial for them. But I think Kia and we turned it around. So, each importer is expecting reporting from the dealers. Usually it's a weekly reporting, it's a monthly reporting, it's a forecasting. And if you need to do that manually, it's a big effort. It takes some time. So what we did was that we got rid of those manual reports, but in order to do that, the dealers had to use the full capacity of the lead management system. So then they started to see this as a benefit, because while they used the system properly, they fed in the data, they got instant benefit from there, plus they got rid of the reporting task. So eventually that was win-win for them, and we managed to turn this case around, and it just worked out fine.
I would like to add one more point there, that also usability is very important from the dealer user point of view. For example, a few months ago, we had a global head of IT from Toyota visiting us, and he asked more information about how come we have been able to make successful rollouts. And then we explained that actually one of the aspects is as well that the system is loved by the dealer users. So since it's very easy to use, if the system is difficult to use, that makes the rollout and the trainings and the chances of the use of the system in full capacity very tricky.
Tim, you mentioned before gamification. Now, this is a term that we hear a lot about, and there's the gaming industry, which is doing very well in the digital space. How do you see digital gamification and the like working in the automotive space?
No, first of all, as I told you, that unless everything is fully digitalized down the streams at the dealer level, and you have fully real-time connection with the customer, you can't do anything in that space. But once you have that, then basically sky is the limit. You can think of anything and then make it happen on the kind of country sales, dealer, or customer level.
Question for me is, in terms of COVID-19, I think you touched on it briefly earlier in the discussion, but what do you think are the major impacts it's going to have on the automotive digital space? So with COVID-19 coming through now, where do you think the changes are going to be, and where do you think dealers and customers are going to be focusing?
So I would like to show you this slide with the vision and how the COVID-19 has affected that. So basically, out of our plans for how the future digitalization of the automotive industry will be, we see now 2 or 3 year shift towards today. So the vision that we were selling, what will be happening within next 3 years has happened now within the past 3 months. So we are busy in prioritizing our development roadmap. I'm sure others as well. At the same time, now there are kind of very active conversations on the OEM level as well to find some sort of solutions. As we mentioned before, it's mainly related to online sales solutions. So I mean, multi-channel chat, video, whatever could be there supporting the contactless sales. So this is one aspect. Then also how to increase the speed of time in API connections with OEM systems, government systems, and other existing systems. Then there is drive for e-commerce, so full online retail, including the trade-in, financing, and insurance capabilities. So basically everything that you need to do in order to make contactless sales happen at the level that senior citizens are able to do it.
I think the last 3 months have been kind of awakening for the dealerships and the car sales. And what I've seen is kind of mild panic to move the car sales online. I mean, e-commerce basically. So yeah, as Siim mentioned, the dealers, OEMs are thinking how to sell cars online. It's not just publishing the cars on your website, but as well allowing to take some steps like to make a deposit to reserve a car. I think 3 months is really short period to make it happen properly. So what I see is actually a lot of dealers are taking the shortcuts. So for them, it's important to have this checkbox ticked that, okay, I have an online shop, but actually it's just a website where you can browse the cars and fill in the form. But I think there is no going back from there. So now you have like a basic version. You have your cars online, you have a request form, but I think over the next months and years, this online shop or e-commerce will play more and more important role in the sales process. It might be that the online sales would be marginal in the beginning, but I think the consumers would expect you to have e-commerce in place rather in a shorter term than the longer.
I would also like to add that, what Janek was saying about the online retail where you go to e-shop and buy a car. But then again, I think the salesman assisted online sales process, this has already been booming for us already, and there are more and more features coming up to support and make this process more efficient as well. So also improve the digitalization on every customer touch point up until the payment and delivery.
I think this e-commerce is yet another thing where no one wants to stay behind. I mean, someone is doing that. Is it successful right now? Probably not yet. But while others are doing that, no one wants to be left behind. I think that was pretty similar with the self-driving cars. Everyone wanted to have a self-driving car. So is it really going to work out in near future? Probably no. But in the long term, it might be. But yeah, everyone wants to be on board with the new things.
It's interesting because we're talking very much about the sales process and sales funnel. Another question I'm keen to ask around digital is around training, whether it be sales training or even technical training. Where do you see digital in that space as a support function to the dealer network?
If to be our company-centric, training is very important part of any implementation. I mean, it will define whether you will succeed or if you fail. As what we see is that the classroom trainings are fading out, and due to the restrictions, it's happening more faster. So you have to have different solutions available. You need to have online manuals for sure, but you need to have training videos. It doesn't mean if you're selling software or you're fixing cars, you need to be able to get educated when you have time for that. So you can't wait for a classroom training.
So Janek, do you think it's going to phase out classroom training completely, or would it just reduce the amount of classroom training? What's your perspective on that?
I think it's classroom training won't disappear for sure. Some of the things you can't teach remotely, but definitely, almost everyone now has an experience with the different video conferencing tools. So definitely there will be more online trainings.
I was just keen to, I suppose, being biased towards the sales side, but around the after sales side and parts, when you look at the digital space, which parts of the dealerships or the industry do you see embracing digital more? Is it more still towards the sales of new cars, used cars? And where is it from? Where do you see the service departments and parts departments? Are they lagging or are they ahead in embracing digital technology?
Yeah, based on my experience, when I explained my journey starting in 2005, I actually saw that the after sales went online first. So it was the service booking, quite a vital thing. So I think at least in the beginning, the sales was lagging behind, but I think now sales is bypassing the after sales in that area.
And what we are working on is to, together with digital providers for the after sales part, it would be tremendous benefit for the manufacturers and on the dealer level as well to have the reporting in on pre-sales, sales, and then also after sales in one system to have the holistic real-time overview what's going on and what should be improved.
I agree with this because I think there's a big difference between being online, either with the sales or the after sales, or being connected and being online. I mean, by connecting means that, you can have the web shop, you can have your service booking form, but if it's lacking connection to the backend systems, then it's just half a solution. I think everyone is striving towards like one ecosystem where all the systems are speaking to each other. For example, you've ordered a bunch of cars to showroom. They are somewhere in the transportation. It's essential that this arriving stock would be already visible on your website, and you don't want to key this in a separate system. You want the systems be connected. So I think that's the point, and that's the same with the service. If someone is checking, wants to book a service, he wants to see actually that you more at 5 p.m., for example. And once the booking is made, you want this booking to be in your backend system. So I think it's all about the connectivity we're looking at nowadays.
And also more sales channels you have. At the moment there are more and more. There's e-commerce websites, different portals. If it's not connected, there's so much overhead that it's not sustainable. So it needs to be connected, and the specifications and the statuses related to the vehicles need to be available in real time to every system. It's critical.
Duplication is the enemy, as is complexity. So you really nail both. You get rid of the duplication of effort and double entry, and get rid of the complexity because it's nice and simple. It's a single point of contact, single point of entry, and a single source of truth.
Okay, Janek, can you maybe just talk a bit about the future and VR and what that sort of role is going to play in the future? Do you think it's going to play a big part?
Actually, the virtual reality, if we're speaking about presenting the new models, virtual reality has been around, I think, 15, 20 years already. We as well made a working prototype a few years ago. It was very fancy. You could pick a model, you could spin it around, you could change the color, could change the interior. And I think it's a great tool and was great tool, and it definitely brings some interest. Will it go mainstream? I mean, that's more depending on, at least in my opinion, it will be mainstream once you don't need to have a bunch of hardware. So today, if you want to have a nice virtual reality experience, you need to have a pretty powerful computer, and you need to have quite a heavy headset, and it's still expensive. So once the technology is there that you just need a pair of glasses, it's affordable, and you could use that from your home, I think then it's gonna make a difference. So currently, the solution is more for like for the showrooms, but once I mean, you can have it in home, I think then it's going to pick up.
And also we had some interesting learnings. So one part was the hardware, but also we saw a lot of solutions out there where customers were wearing the glasses and putting themselves into strange positions around the showrooms. But we did it in a way that it wasn't only about marketing, so it's just an interesting experience for the customer, but actually our solution was connected to the sales solution that we have, and then the customers was guided by the sales person around the virtual reality. So the customer could also sit next to the salesman and have this kind of bonding experience, ending up with a proposal when they take the glasses off. But we ran into trouble that, as I mentioned before, often the marketing and sales are totally two different things. So it would have involved 2 apartments. And then the third obstacle was that the 3D models that OEMs are still reluctant to standardize and give out the 3D models that could be then used within the virtual reality. So there's also this type of technical and political things to be sorted in order for virtual reality to be success in the long term.
Yeah, there's been quite a lot of talk about virtual reality for technical training, that you could actually see the engine and actually work on a digital engine, and if you touch the wrong part, it'll correct you to. So there's been talk of that, but I think it might have the same challenges as you mentioned in there. What's your view on that, Siim?
On this part, I think that is already been a success story in many levels. So I mean, using it in trainings and so on. So actually, we know one Finnish company, and there are many others that are already providing AR and VR solutions for the after sales parts. But then for the 3D modeling and using it in the sales process, I think that's a more tricky one to solve.
So I mentioned the buying experience, starting from the OEM website, going to the national site, going to the dealer website. And the thing, what is not yet solved, I mean, in 15 years, is that the availability and the quality of the vehicle specifications. So the data, what you see on OEM site, I mean, the price lists are perfect. There are nice configurators. But once you get to the local level, we really see that the data is not up to date. The dealers still have price lists in PDF format. They don't have car configurators. And this is really, really surprising for me. Like, it's essential to have a quality data, and why it's not fixed. So this is actually what we've been doing with a lot of brands, helping to manage the master data, as Siim mentioned before. But I'm still getting surprised when we see how some of the OEMs are sharing the material with their dealer network. So we still see a lot of PDFs. So we see a lot of Excels which have no quality, no kind of data structure. And then we see the process, how the price list is translated in a local language. So it's, as I said, it's very surprising that this kind of simple flow, what has direct connection to the sales success, is not fixed. And that's one part. And then the other part is the accessories. I mean, you need to upsell things. That's making you profit. And if you don't have the accessory price list available, you don't have accessory images available, then how you gonna sell more? So this is still the issue to be solved within the automotive space.
Just adding in, it also relates to this VR topic, that when we did this kind of prototype of this 3D configurator connected to the sales systems and stock and so on. So actually then also, if there would be 3D images available or 3D models available and shareable, then actually also the problem of having quality images and 360-degree materials would also be solved, because they could be extracted automatically from this 3D model, standardized 3D model, without any human effort. So definitely there are still kind of many basic things that OEMs, some of them are already in process of doing, and others should definitely do as soon as possible.
So Janek, from our side, I'd just like to thank you very much for a really interesting and informative discussion. Myself, I've learned huge amounts, so I appreciate your time today. I don't know, do you want to add anything, Mark?
Gentlemen, I really thank you for your time. It's been fantastic from my perspective as well. I really like how you guys are at the forefront in the digital space. I've learned a lot. I was totally unaware of the leadership that your country and you guys have in this field, and the extensive work you're doing throughout the European markets, and with some very big clients. So yeah, some great learnings for me today, and thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
So, but I think it's sometimes good to just sit and talk about some of these concepts and that, because often, and I think that's why it's going to be really interesting for the listeners and that too, because often people don't think about these things and the challenges and the type of solutions that are available and what is out there. So I think that's really interesting. So
I've got my top three things here, John, that I've taken away from today. As with all episodes, there's always the three things. So the first one, which I took notes of, which I thought was a really, really strong one, was the customer's expectation that they want to get confirmation. I think you explained this one to us, that they want confirmation of what they've already found out online. And that's the first experience that they need to have when they go to the dealership. So it's that confirmation of what they've already experienced. The second one is the message and the experience that they get on the factory website has to correspond to the dealer's website, and then it has to correspond to the digital experience in the showroom. So having configurators in the showroom, having digital screens in the showroom, just keep it consistent all the way through. And if there's a disconnect through that journey, there's a disconnect in the buying experience, impacts customer satisfaction, it also impacts the sale process. And the third one is with any digital system and lead management system, it has to be user-friendly and minimize duplication. So if it's user-friendly, you'll get user acceptance, and then it minimizes duplication, which is a massive win for everybody. And the data integrity is there, and it streamlines all the processes. So they're the three things for me.
Yeah, Mark, what was interesting for me, I think, Janek, you made the point that first the software came, then there was the process, and then there came the OEM to drive the process. And to me, that was interesting. I would never have thought it would have been that way around. So, and the second thing is that you said the customer always wants to remain under the radar. So they don't actually want to be contacted or spoken to until the very last piece of the puzzle. Then they come into the dealer and then they expect the continuation of the whole process. So to me, that was really interesting.
At least in some markets.
Yeah. But I think that's very much Australian market too.
You're saying the Western European market, they want to be, it's the old school, engage, touch, feel, all that stuff. Whereas, correct me if I'm wrong, the Eastern European market, just let me do my research, I'll talk to you when I'm ready.
Also, one aspect that you mentioned about the youth, so I had it in mind that actually I think the biggest problem for the automotive industry regarding the youth is that will be actually they buying cars or not, and how this COVID-19 will affect that. Because, for example, in Helsinki, Finland, 80% of the people under 25 years old don't have a driver's license. They're using public transport. So we will see how that will now affect that. Will they start now buying cars or not? It's also interesting to see.
Okay, and anything else if you want to add any other things? Maybe we can do a map of Estonia or to show people where it is or whatever. So
that'd be good for the start. Makes me want to go. I'm very curious. One day I'd like to get to Estonia.
It's the most beautiful. Tallinn is the most beautiful city you'll ever go in the world, Mark. It's an old city, 12th century old city. It's one of the few cities that's never been bombed in the world. So it's got all the old buildings and that from the 12th century. It's absolutely amazing.
Wow.
Janek, maybe you can explain it better. So.
Mark, it's just, it used to be 28 hours of flight time to get here. So I guess now as a lot of flights have been grounded, I think you will be here within 2 days.
Yes, yeah, I don't think we'll be traveling anytime soon. So
yeah.
Hi everybody, thank you very much for listening today.
And hopefully you got as much out of today's episode as we did.
If you enjoyed and liked what you heard, please follow us on YouTube.
Share our links on LinkedIn. And if you have any suggestions at all for any topics you want us to cover, please send those through to us.
And subscribe. And we look forward to talking to you again next week. Thank you very much.
Enjoy your day.